third temple is very near. Hey guys, Britt here. Welcome to End Times Bible Prophecy. Are we on the verge of seeing the Jewish temple rebuilt? Yes, we are. Today we're going to look at some recent news stories, and then I'll tell you exactly why it's going to happen. So let's start right here. This is from Middle East Eye. It says, Smotrich vows to rebuild temple during Jerusalem Day celebrations. And this caught my eye. This is an older story from last month, so from May. It says, far right. And guys, this is why people have disdain for the news media. Because they add in adjectives and commentary to things that are put forth as news stories. News story, you're supposed to report the news. You're not supposed to report your opinion. It should be enough to say Israeli finance minister. You don't have to add far right to it. And of course, they don't add far left or extremist commie or anything like that to the people that they support, right? So anybody they don't support, far right. And this is why people don't like the news media, but it says, far-right Israeli finance minister Bezalel Smotrich has called for the rebuilding of a Jewish temple on the site of the Al-Aqsa Mosque and for the expansion of Israel's borders and Jewish settlements in Gaza. Now, does he have the power to do this? No. Will it lead to this? I don't know. But I think it's very important that we have a member of the Israeli government calling for this. This is a big deal, and we've seen a number of these stories in the recent past. We had this one from a couple of years ago again. Here we have more news media. Extremist Jewish group prepares for a new Jewish holy temple. So they're extremist if they're carrying out something that they don't agree with. But it says, with imported sacrificial cows, ancient hymns, and growing support, some nationalist Jews hope to rebuild the Holy Temple in Jerusalem's Old City on a site at the heart of Israeli-Palestinian tensions. And we see this news article right here from JNS. It says, the red heifer catalyst for war or harbinger of global peace, from back in April. And it talks about, of course, the story of the red heifers. We've heard a lot about that in recent times. We know about the Temple Institute. There are people who have been preparing for years for the rebuilding of the temple, and they have all of the biblical objects that are needed to restore temple worship in the temple. And then we have this recent news story. So again, from the Christian Post, Pete Hegseth floats third Jewish temple and unearths speech. It could happen. So we had this from back in February, and of course, they're trying to make this look like, well, the Secretary of Defense of the United States, his official position is rebuilding the Jewish temple, but no, this is from a speech 7 years ago where he said, well, I don't know how it would happen, but I know that it could happen. Right. So again, this is why people generally dislike the mainstream media, because they don't just report the news. They try to come up with angles and ways to make stories appear more than they are. Guys, will any of these things lead to the rebuilding of the Jewish temple? I think it's pretty significant that you have a member of the Israeli government calling for the rebuilding of the Jewish temple. I think that's a big deal. But I don't know if any of these things directly will lead to the rebuilding of the temple. I don't know do I know what exact day the temple will be rebuilt on? No, I don't know that either. But guys, I know with absolute certainty the temple will be rebuilt. How do I know that? Because the Bible tells us. So let's take a look right here. This is from Matthew 24, verse 15. Jesus speaking, and he says, the day is coming when you will see what Daniel the prophet spoke about, the sacrilegious object that causes desecration standing in the holy place. So the abomination of desolation, that's a reference to this verse here in Daniel chapter 9, verse 27. This is speaking of the Antichrist. Let me close out these videos that are popping up. This is speaking about the Antichrist. It says the ruler will make a treaty with the people for a period of one set of 7, so for 7 years. But after half this time, so after 3.5 years, he will put an end to the sacrifices and offerings. And as a climax to all his terrible deeds, he will set up a sacrilegious object that causes desecration until the fate decreed for this defiler is finally poured out on him. So Jesus is telling us, before he comes back, the abomination of desolation will take place. He's, again, pointing to this right here. And the Antichrist, the Bible is telling us that in the middle of the tribulation, he's going to put an end to sacrifices and offerings. That tells us that those are in place. Well, you can't have the sacrifices and offerings in the temple without a temple. You can't desecrate the temple. You can't commit this act, the abomination of desolation, unless there is a temple. So that tells us the Jewish temple will be rebuilt. We also had this from 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 1 through 4. It says, "Now, dear brothers and sisters, let us clarify some things about the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ and how we will be gathered to meet him. Don't be so easily shaken or alarmed by those who say that the day of the Lord has already begun. Don't believe them, even if they claim to have had a spiritual vision, a revelation, or a letter supposedly from us. Don't be fooled by what they say. For that day will not come until there is a great rebellion against God, and the man of lawlessness is revealed." Again, this is the Antichrist, the one who brings destruction. He will exalt himself and defy everything that people call God and every object of worship. He will even sit in the temple of God, claiming that he himself is God. So again, how will the Antichrist sit in that temple if it does not exist? It must be rebuilt. The Bible is telling us the temple will be rebuilt. And the Bible's track record is 100% perfection. So you can be sure that this will happen. Now, when will it happen? Again, I don't know the exact day when this will happen, but I can tell you it is very near. It is very soon. How can I say that? Well, because of the times in which we live. That same passage from Matthew 24, where Jesus is telling us to look for this abomination of desolation, is the same passage where Jesus is telling us, he's responding to his followers' questions about what's going to happen? What are the signs that precede your coming? Not the rapture of the church, that has no signs. But what are the signs that precede your coming at the end of the tribulation, the second coming, to establish your kingdom on earth? And Jesus goes on to describe a number of signs. And the Old Testament prophets, they also described a number of signs. And guys, we see those signs in our day and time. We see the people, the Jewish people, regathered back into the land, and the nation state of Israel has become a modern day nation state once again, for the first time since 70. So from the year 70 to the year 1948, there was no Israel. There was no Jewish state. That's 93% of Christian history. Israel did not exist. Jesus said, Jerusalem will be trampled by the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles come to an end. We have Old Testament prophets that told us that Jerusalem would be filled again by the Jewish people. We see that again after the Six-Day War in 1967. We see Jerusalem back in possession of the Jewish people once again. We see the gospel being preached to the ends of the earth. Has every last person heard it? No. Ultimately, that will be fulfilled during the tribulation, but look at the strides that have been made, particularly over the last 200 years or so. We're seeing the gospel being spread to every corner of the earth. Guys, we're seeing all these signs, the formation of the Gog of Magog alliance. Look at all the things with technology alone, the ability for the two witnesses in Revelation to be killed and the whole world to look upon their bodies for 3 days. Outside of the supernatural, that was impossible for previous generations. Now we see, with Elon Musk and Starlink covering the Earth's atmosphere with all these satellites that can connect to smartphones, and almost everyone in the world now has a smartphone, no matter where they live, no matter how poor they are. And so we're getting to a point where that will be possible, where that could happen. I mean, it's already possible for most people, but eventually every person on the earth is going to have that connection, have that ability to view events in real time. So we're seeing all of these things take place. How about the mark of the beast, a system that can determine who can buy or sell on a global basis? Again, outside of the supernatural, that was impossible prior to our generation. So we're seeing all of these signs coming at us. Those are just a few of them. And Jesus told us this. This is from Luke 21, verse 28. He says, "So when all these things begin to happen, stand and look up, for your salvation is near." And he repeats this in Mark 13, Matthew 24. He says, "I'm right at the door." Guys, Jesus is coming. We're on the verge of seeing that. We're seeing all of these signs, and that tells us the Bible tells us the temple will be rebuilt. And given all the signs we see, we have every reason to expect we live in the times in which that temple will be rebuilt. Will the church be here to see it? I have no idea. The rapture of the church could happen before that. But you can be sure that the temple will be rebuilt. The Bible tells us that. And it's going to be rebuilt very soon based on all the signs we see. Again, Jesus and the prophet said, look for these signs. Our generation is seeing the convergence of these signs. And that is the number one sign Jesus said to look for. When you see all these things, look up. Your salvation draws near. I'm right at the door. Guys, so if you know Jesus, you should be filled with hope and joy, knowing he's coming back at any moment. You should also be filled with a sense of urgency to share the good news of Jesus Christ with as many people as possible. We live in a lost and dying world, desperate to hear about Jesus Christ. Make sure you are prepared to give an account to anybody around you about the hope you have in Jesus Christ. And guys, if you don't know Jesus and you're watching this, invite him into your life today. Ask and you shall receive. If you ask for Jesus to come to you, to give you truth, if you go read the Bible, God will come into your life. Jesus will give you a peace that surpasses all understanding. So guys, what do you think? Leave your comments below. Let me know what you think. If you missed it last night, go over to the live tab on this channel on YouTube, and you'll see the prophecy roundtable that we did last night. We had a lot of people on for that, a great discussion about many of the things we're seeing in this day and time technologically. AI, we had big discussions on transhumanism, AI, technocracy, all sorts of topics that point to, guys, the times in which we live and where we are today. So leave your comments below. Let me know what you think, and God willing, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.